It's time now for the Success is Subjective podcast. Here is your host and therapeutic consultant for young adults only, Joanna Lilley.
Hi, and welcome to the show. If you're new here, I'm glad to have you. This podcast was formed to collectively build a bank of stories from normal people sharing their nonlinear paths. Unfortunately, social media paints a narrow picture of what success looks like, so I'm doing my best to spread the news that changing course is common, and you don't have to know what you want to do the rest of your life at 18. If you're a parent worried about your young adult and whether their path is leading them to success, you're in the right place. I'm a therapeutic consultant who works with young adults to connect them with resources that'll help them get back on a better path. So if you're curious, let's chat. You can schedule a free consultation through my website, which you can find the link for in the show notes. My guest today is Darla Beam. Darla is a conscious life and leadership coach, or a certified professional coactive coach who works with people to identify and remove blocks to living the best version of themselves and consciously continue to co-create and up-level that vision of their best and most empowered life, and to use this one life to make an exponential impact in the world around them. Darla is awesome. This interview is awesome. Let's not wait any longer. Here she is. All right. Hi, Darla. Thanks for being here as a guest on the podcast.
I'm really excited. Thank you for having me.
All right, let's just jump in. Why don't you tell our listeners, where did you grow up? Because I actually don't know that. So I think that paints a picture kind of some, there's a cultural or geographic piece to that. So tell us where you grew up, and then tell us, what were you hearing from your family or kind of the area in which you were raised about what you're supposed to be doing after high school?
Yeah, so I grew up on a small farm in the Midwest in Ohio, outside of Cleveland, so about an hour outside of Cleveland, in a very, very small town that I grew up in the middle of a cornfield, and no one even knows the name of the town, even people who are from Ohio. Until many years later, actually, while I lived there, they built some prisons just a couple miles down the street from my house. I'm not kidding you. And then everybody knew where I was from. So I'd say, yeah, I'm from Grafton. They'd say, oh, yeah, the prison town.
Oh, my gosh. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, it put Grafton on the map, apparently.
It put Grafton on the map. And so what did I hear as I was growing up? Interestingly for me, what I remember is not hearing a whole lot. Like, I didn't have the pressure from my parents. They were not very educated. And so we didn't, it wasn't even an option at a time when I would have liked to be thinking about college or been encouraged to go to college or, to further my education. I actually wasn't. It was complete sort of like, that's not even an option for you. We don't have money. We're very poor. And, so, they didn't encourage me to sort of like, oh, you can get, grants or financial aid. Like, that just wasn't even a conversation.
Wow. Okay. So then what did you do?
Yeah. Interestingly, I got out of Grafton the day I turned 18.
You're like, I don't actually want to work for the prison. So, okay, I've got to move. All right. So you left. Where did you go?
I left. I went to California. I went to Northern California, to a small town, relative to California, to Santa Cruz. And I spent a couple years there thinking that I would go to college, in California after I had residency, because I did ultimately I had a yearning to further my education, although it didn't turn out the way that I thought it was going to turn out, or didn't turn out exactly the way that I thought it was going to turn out. So I spent a couple of years in California.
See, I love hearing a story like that, because that's a hook to me. Okay, so it didn't turn out the way that you thought it was going to. So how did it turn out? I'm hanging on the edge, just like waiting in anticipation.
So I lived in California for 2 years, which was the statute of having the residency at the time. And then my mom got sick and I flew back home to kind of take care of her. She actually needed a very intensive surgery. And so I flew home to take care of her, and then ended up sort of like losing my quote unquote residency. And that was fine. I took care of my mom, and I definitely don't regret that. And then I found myself visiting Florida. And then so I moved to another coast. Yeah. And so I spent time on another coast and ended up getting into technology, which is so interesting again with where I ended up. And I chose that honestly, Joanna, because that's where the money was. This is like prior to Y2K. So there's like so much money to be made, right, with reprogramming. And that's kind of where I started out with a programming company. And so I spent a couple of years doing that. And then that company had an office here in Texas. And my sister lived here in Texas. And I said to myself, well, I'm never going to have kids. This is what I said to myself. I'm never going to have kids. So I'm going to move close to my sister because she's pregnant, and I want to be close to her and her family and her children.
It's funny the decisions that we make based on, at the time, the information that we have.
It is so funny. It is so funny in the stories that we tell ourselves based on the information that we think we have at that time, right? Or what we think to be true. And so I moved to Texas, and my company transferred me, and I came here. Yeah, I met my kid's father at the time, and at work at the place where I worked, and ended up, at the time I sort of felt like I had never seen a model of a good father. And so, because I didn't feel like my father modeled the way that I would want to be in relationship with someone. And so I met my kid's father, and he appeared to be a really engaged father and, successful in, I'm air quoting successful in the ways that I thought at that time mattered. And so I ended up getting married and having my own kids.
And we're still on this path of twists and turns, because now you're a parent, and I know that you don't work in the tech industry anymore. So at some point
right.
There's a switch there too.
Oh my gosh.
So fill us in.
So many more twists and turns. So, when I was in IT, because I shifted into network administration and hardware and software. And so while I was in IT, what I found was that I loved being with people, and I loved sort of like fixing their problems, right? But what I noticed was that I didn't love fixing I was paying attention. I would go to people's desks, and, they didn't have anything to do while I was fixing their computer, because there was no tech, and there wasn't texting, or smartphones at that point. And so the person would just stand there and just talk to me, right? They just talk to me. And so I just listened, because I was fixing their computer, but I, had one ear listening, right? And what I noticed was that when I walked away, they would feel excited, because not only was the computer fixed, but in some way they felt like excited and free and relief and happy, because I was just doing what I was meant to do, which is really be present with them. And that's really what all people want, especially our kids. And this is what my kids have taught me. They want us to be present with them, right? And I was able to give this to these people. And then I brought awareness to that, like, oh my gosh, I actually don't love working in tech. I don't love working with computers. In fact, it's so opposite of who I am. And so I had a coach at the time who impacted my life, right, and helped me change the direction of my life. And that's a different story about parenting that I would love to share with you. And so that impact that he made helped me decide to go into the coaching industry. But I didn't know that I was going to be doing coach training for my life. I didn't know I was going to be doing that for my career. I thought I was doing it to make myself a better listener, to make myself just level up, right? And then I started the training and realized, like, this is it. This is my thing. After all these twists and turns, I was like, this is what I'm meant to do. And that was 15, 20 years ago. And I'm so fortunate to have found it. I made a lot of seemingly more mistakes and, pivots at the time, but I got to my place. I got to my purpose because of those pivots, because of, California, back to Ohio, back to Florida, like all of these changes, and even within my career. And so at that same time, I was in at that time in corporate America, I was at the C level, right? I co-founded a business. I ran a nonprofit, founded and ran a nonprofit at that time, and decided that I wanted to just coach. That's what I wanted to do, right? And I really wanted to support people in up-leveling their lives and finding their purpose, not necessarily sooner, but just finding their purpose, because now I feel this, like, if I die tomorrow, Joanna, I'm fine. If I get hit by a bus, I have done everything that I wanted to do. I've lived the way that I wanted to live because I found that purpose, and then I brought that thread through every aspect of my life, right? And so that's been, that's been my greatest gift.
And I'm like so mesmerized as you're talking because, obviously when this podcast comes out, people that are listening are only like they're only hearing you. But for those who actually take the time to look at the video, you can see that Darla, you're just like, it emanates from you, right? It's like radiating that authenticity and the genuineness around what you just said. Like, if anything happens to me, like, I'm fine. Like, you have completely harnessed what is your purpose. And I think that that's actually, like, hearing that, I hope, is instilling more just, like, want and wish and all the things for parents specifically that are listening to this podcast who might be worried about their young person and like what life's going to look like for them. Hearing that they might find it, or they will find it at some point, it'll be okay, and it might look differently. I imagine that there's a sense of relief.
There is such a sense of relief. And I want to say, like, it's okay right now. It's okay right now. There's not a point in the future. And that's what the aha was. That was the story that I really want to tell, this pivotal moment, this choice point that I had, is realizing, like, it's okay. Like I said, if I die, I'm okay. But also I know that my kids are okay and everybody around me is okay, because I've lived this purpose, because I have brought that into every aspect of my life, including my interactions with my kids. And so the story is that when my daughter was a baby, the youngest, I read this book. I don't know. I read it. I found it through a parenting magazine called like a little local Fort Worth parenting magazine. And it was like one line, and it said about this book called Chasing Daylight. And I don't know why I remember that. And I ordered that book because obviously you can see behind me, I have hundreds, thousands of books, right? But I remember seeing this book and I ordered it. I don't know what had me ordering it. And the book is about the former CEO of KPMG, which is a top accounting firm in the country. At the time it was. And it was about the last 90 days of the CEO's life. He was diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor that was painless, and he decided to write a book about the last 90 days of his life. And the book is called Chasing Daylight, because it's all about how he had these what he did was he drew a circle, and then he drew another circle and a circle within the circle, and he put his family in the very center of the circle, and then in the next kind of his extended family, and then his friends, and then acquaintances. And so he went out further and further. And what he did was he worked his way into the circle, right? And had these moments, created these experiences where he called them moments. At that time, that's what I call them, moments, and had experiences with people where he wasn't saying goodbye. He was just being with them. He was just being present with them. And at the end, here's what impacted me so profoundly, it changed my whole life, is that he worked his way inward. And before he got a chance to travel to Europe with his 15-year-old daughter, which was like her one wish, he died. And I still remember the feeling, and his wife actually ended up finishing the book for him. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be that. I need to have more moments. I want to have moments now. I want to work my way from the inside circle to the outside circle. And I was like, holy cow, how do I do that? And I asked a coach at the time that I knew. I was actually working with my husband, and he said, read this other book called The Power of Now, which is all about being present. And that teacher gave me advice to just, if there's, your only job as a parent is to be present with your kids. That's it. So my daughter was a baby at the time, and I'm not saying it's been easy. She's 18 now. So I'm not saying it's been easy. Okay. I'm not saying that, but it's kind of been my stake, right? It's been my anchor. Like, we've gone through the two girls. I have two girls that are 2 years apart. And so we had two girls in the teenage years. And so, because I had that anchor, because I had that stake, all I need to do is be present. All I need to do is be present. Even if a tsunami came, I was tethered to this stake that was anchored into the ground, that had concrete poured around it. And, like, if it was a superhero stake, like, it had all the magic in the multiverse, right? Anchoring it to the ground so that when the tsunamis came, I was anchored to just be present. And it's not about outcome, right? It's not that, yay, my daughter is in Hawaii and she's living her purpose with marine conservation, or that the other one is, wants to defend, innocence. And so she's going to be pre-law. That's arguable. People have opinions about that, but that's what she believes. But the point is that, they're looking for the purpose. Like my 18-year-old at 15, her confusion was like, Mom, I haven't found my purpose yet. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, the fact that you know what that word means is a level up, or not a level up, but just an acknowledgement to you and your, to your awareness. Right. And so, like, this, it's not yay, Darla. It's just like, it's acknowledging that this works, our kids, our people, our loved ones, our colleagues, our coworkers, they just want us to be present with them.
Okay, so in an effort for me to be present with you and also make sure people are listening know exactly where to find you, can you tell us, I mean, obviously you're a coach, but tell us who are you coaching and how do people find you? And then I have one final question.
Yeah. Okay. So you can find me at darlabeam.com. Super easy. Darla Beam, like a moonbeam or balance beam, a beam of light. So it's darlabeam.com. It's super easy. And I'm on social media under, all the platforms under that name. And so who am I and who are my clients? So, I help people on their journeys. So after that experience, I had sort of like, I felt like I woke up, like I was asleep. I had been asleep up until then, and I woke up and I didn't have someone to support me through that journey, right? I felt alone and isolated. So now my clients are people who want to feel supported, want a partner, want, someone to kind of hold their hand. So sometimes, like, I had a client come to me and she wanted me to coach her, her teen, but ultimately it was she herself who wanted and needed coaching, right? And so, and we've done, she's left the corporate world. She's a very successful corporate person, and now she's living her life purpose, right? So I take people on journeys. We go on journeys together, right? And find whatever it is that they're looking for, that's missing, that's keeping them from either living their purpose or being more present in all aspects of their life.
Okay. All right. So having heard that, and we'll make sure that we have the links for all of those social handles and your website in the show notes. And I also want to make sure that we're including the links for the books that you discussed earlier, Power of Now and Chasing Daylight, because I think that those will resonate. I mean, I want to just make sure it's accessible. If you are interested, once you've heard what Darla just kind of discussed, make sure you seek that out and read it. I think reading is really helpful nowadays. Okay, so last question. Having heard your journey and also just kind of witnessing you light up about not just finding your own purpose, but helping other people on their journey to find their purpose, do you see yourself as successful?
Oh, yes. Yes. And, I think I've been saying that since the beginning of this call, right? I'm living my purpose. If I die tomorrow or in the next moment, in 1 minute, I'm at peace. I'm at peace. I have no fear of death or dying, or because of this, because of that quote unquote success. So the word success sometimes has triggers around it or stigma, or people define it in certain ways. So, how I define it is having lived my life, in a way that's the truth of who I am, my highest self, my best self in every single moment. And to me, that's success.
Well, Darla, thank you again for taking some time to be a guest on the show, to give a little bit of like an inside scoop of who you are and how you got to where you are. And I know that there will be people listening to this that are going to feel how you show up through your voice. And this is my call to action for anybody that's listening. If you are at that point in your life where you feel like you're asleep currently and could use somebody to kind of help you not just wake up, but really go through that journey to find your true purpose in this moment, please reach out to Darla, especially if her story and how she talks about guiding people really resonates with you. I think it'd be a perfect match.
Yeah, I want to add one more thing. Is like sometimes people feel so alone in this journey, and I do work with clients one-on-one, but I also have some communities, right, where people come together, and one of them is called a doing from being group, right? So being present, and then how do you do something from that place? So being present doesn't mean you don't do anything. So if it's really helpful to learn from other people, from other parents, from other people in the world, to hear their stories and to be in community in a place where people are practicing the same kinds of things. So whether it's my doing from being group or another group, like I highly encourage you, to find a place where you feel like you belong and you can create this for yourself.
Love it. Well, thank you for offering that. Again, reach out to Darla to get connected, whether it's one-on-one or in the group. Darla, thank you again for taking the time to be a guest.
You are so welcome. I'm grateful to be here.
That's it for this week's Success is Subjective episode. We want to thank our guest for joining Joanna on the show this week and for being willing to share your journey. This podcast would not exist if it weren't for people such as yourself. Stay tuned for our next episode, where you can bet it'll be another amazing human sharing their personal story with the world. Make sure you check out the show notes, where you will find contact information, website details, and all social media for our guest. If you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, you can email joanna@lilleyconsulting.com. Be sure to check out the lilleyconsulting.com website for additional resources outside of podcasting. Now, if you're listening to the show on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe. And while you're at it, feel free to leave a review. You can also download to listen to the Success is Subjective podcast on other popular podcast apps, such as Audible, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio. Thanks again for listening in, and remember, there is no single path through life. Success is what you make it.